unmute yourself, and we're gonna, there you go. All right, you should be unmuted now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Good.
So I want to welcome everyone to the Globetrotting Entrepreneur. And we've got today really a very, very special person, Dr. Mort Orman. He's an internal medicine physician who specializes in helping successful professionals, business owners, and entrepreneurs eliminate stress from their lives without having to manage it. And I think that is really the key that we're going to be talking about today. It's not managing stress. It's going to be about eliminating it and totally relieving it. So Mort is the founder of the Stress Mastery Academy. He's the creator of the ultimate stress relief system. And for more than 30 years now, he has been America's leading stress elimination expert. So if you ever wished you could make negative emotions like anger, frustration, anxiety, and worry quickly disappear, or if you want fewer interpersonal conflicts and relationship failures, or you'd like to substantially reduce your stress at work, Dr. Orman can show you how to do all of these things without using drugs, relaxation techniques, or other time-consuming stress management techniques. So without any further ado, I really want to introduce Dr. Orman to go through his slideshow here and share with us some of these great techniques. Let's hear about it, Mort.
All right, great. Well, first I want to thank you, Barbara, for putting this on and for wanting to do this for your clients and the people who you work with. And I've invited some of the people from who follow me to come on if they were interested as well. So thank you for taking the initiative to put this together. And I'm very happy to be here and share these ideas with the group. So the first thing I just want to set the stage a little bit about who this is for. And it's basically, it's very wide and broad in scope. Anybody who is success-oriented, high achiever type person, I think would get a lot of value out of this webinar tonight. Basically anybody could, but it's particularly geared for, as I mentioned, professionals, entrepreneurs, people who are interested in high achieving and success and don't want to keep paying the price that we typically pay when we go on that track. And we end up sacrificing a lot of things in pursuit of the goals that we set for ourselves. So that's kind of what this is all about. A little bit more about me. Barbara did mention a good bit. As she mentioned, I'm an internal medicine physician, but that's not very unusual and probably not why you're here tonight. But the unusual piece is the stress piece, particularly stress elimination. So what I do is it's different than stress management. I'm not opposed to stress management. I look at this as being very complementary. For people who are into stress management, this can add a new avenue, a new way of approaching stress. And people who haven't got into stress management yet, this could be a very viable alternative if they wanted to pursue this. So again, I mentioned one of the reasons we're doing this tonight is because successful people today in the high-paced, fast-paced society that we have are paying a significant price in many ways for their success. And including doctors like myself, dentists, other professionals, corporate folks, entrepreneurs. We tend to be so focused on achievement and so focused on creating financial security for ourselves and our families that sometimes we end up sacrificing our health. We end up putting up with a lot of stress that we really don't have to put up with. It's just we've kind of been convinced that there's not much you can do to get rid of it. You can't really eliminate it. And I'm kind of here to tell you tonight that that's not really true. There are ways to eliminate stress if you have the right perspective. So for the last 30 years, as Barbara mentioned, I've been working in this field, really helping people live better, have better relationships, have more fun, laugh a lot more, and have more happiness and more success. Again, without all the sacrifices that we normally pay. So over the years, people have found this so valuable that they've been very happy to pay me, $1,000 a month or more to work in my elite one-on-one coaching program to help them learn these stress elimination principles. And I want to share some of them with you today. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you some new things about stress you probably haven't heard before, and that very few people correctly understand today. So most of the people that you live with, your family members, people you work with, your friends, probably are not going to have this particular perspective on stress. And so I want to hopefully open up some new ways of thinking for you and show you that it really is possible to eliminate 75% or more of the stress that we normally put up with in life. And as Barbara mentioned, by that, I mean, emotional stress such as anger and frustration and worry and guilt and relationship conflicts and stress at work and all kinds of other problems that we can experience. So that's the price that we're paying, and that's hopefully we don't have to keep paying that price as time goes on.
Yeah. Great.
Here are a couple specific things I'm going to share with you tonight. I'm going to show you how to make one simple change in your thinking about stress that you don't have to wait till tomorrow. You don't have to wait till 2 weeks from now. This is something you do right here on this webinar tonight that will open up a whole new way of thinking about stress that will change, hopefully, the way that you approach it from tonight on. And so we'll go through that one change, which it appears very minor, but it actually has a lot of implications. Also, I'm going to talk about the downside of managing stress, that it's very hard to win the game through stress management, and that's why I say it's for losers. And again, it's not that I don't think that stress management techniques don't have value. They have a tremendous amount of value. They have a lot of health benefits. There are a lot of good things to say about stress management techniques, but when you talk about eliminating stress, they're not that great for elimination. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then the most important thing is I'm going to show you what I think is really holding most people back from having the type of stress-free life that they really love to have, and actually that they have the ability to have. So I'm going to share a little bit about my own story and how I was able to accomplish that, and how you can actually do the same thing. So again, this is an excellent webinar for someone if you're interested in having less emotional distress, less anger, less anxiety, less guilt, frustration. If you're interested in having fewer relationship conflicts and reducing the odds of ending up divorced or having some big, business partnership failure that could be very costly. Just having less stress overall and just not paying such a heavy price to be able to continue pursuing success and financial security that most of us want to have for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so one of the things, and if those things weren't enough by themselves, which I think they should be, to have you stick around to the end of the presentation, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about the ultimate stress release system that I developed 30 years ago and that I've been using in my life basically every day since then to keep my stress levels low. And also at the very end, I'll tell you about a home study course that I have where you can get the same system for yourself if you're interested. But even if that's something you don't particularly want to do, at the end, I'm going to, everybody who's on the webinar, I picked out one of the very powerful stress elimination tools from my system. It's just one of many tools in the system, but it's something I will give you a link to download for free at the end of the webinar as sort of a gift for staying with this all the way and learning everything that there is to learn tonight.
Great, that's fantastic. So I hope all of you stick around to the end to be able to get that very special tool. Excellent.
Yes. So I was going to go into my story. Did you want to ask me anything or talk about anything?
Well, one thing we were chatting with as we were getting ready that I think would be really interesting for a lot of people on this particular call who know that we do a lot with meditation as part of the retreat center here, and I use that with almost all of my business clients. And we were just chatting about what your view is of using meditation as part of your daily practice. Do you do that as part of your daily practice, or what's your view on meditation in particular? I think meditation basically is very valuable. And there are, of course, lots of different forms of meditation. You can do it in different ways for different purposes. You can use it as a purely relaxation technique. You can use it, to change your mindset, to improve self-awareness, to become, to live more in the here and now if you practice it on a regular basis. So I think all those things are very beneficial. Over the years, I have used meditation in different contexts.
for myself. I don't do it as part, it's not a big part of my daily practice because I don't really, no, I've incorporated a lot of meditative aspects into my daily life without having to
Yeah.
practice them.
Yeah.
Because I used to run, I used to do long distance running. And I did it as a meditation. I didn't do it as cardiovascular, although I got cardiovascular benefits. It was really a mindset uh, uh, alteration for me. And I did it for like 25 years.
Mm.
And when you do that every day for 25 years, it becomes part of you. And, you can't not, be sort of naturally meditating as you go through your day. So after you've put that much, practice into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say it's part of me. It's not something that I do a lot as far as a conscious, intentional practice. Although sometimes I do. When I go to the dentist, I use it for sure.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to let you keep moving on then. Let's go forward.
Okay. So it's a little bit about. I want to share with you a little bit how I went from being a very typical high-stressed physician or a high-stress person to, for the first 30 years of my life. I'm now, as a matter of fact, next week I'm going to be 69. So I divide my life into like 30 plus year blocks. And the first 30 plus years, I had a tremendous amount of stress. And then I had this amazing breakthrough and developed the system. And the last 30 some years of my life have been amazingly stress-free. So I want to tell you how that transition happened, or that transformation happened, and what led to it. So, like most successful people, a lot of my stress started earlier in life when I was in high school and college. But clearly, when I started medical school, things really escalated, and I just started having a lot of problems with anxiety and anger and irritability, and I was having relationship issues all over the place, and I just wasn't all that happy. I mean, I did okay academically. I wasn't struggling academically, but I just wasn't feeling really good inside, and I was really bothered by having being so labile, emotionally, and by having so many relationship issues. And I had always been a very successful person, so everything I had sort of put my mind to, for example, I was really good in most sports that I took on. Like I said, I was good academically. I was very successful. Almost everything I turned my mind to, I could succeed at, except for the stress problem, and all the various aspects of that. I just could not figure it out. And it was very frustrating. And then, so as I went along in my medical training, things got worse and worse and more stressful. And no matter what I tried, it didn't matter. Things just didn't work out. I had a series of failed relationships with women. Now, at that time, I wasn't married. I didn't have a kid. But if I had, it would look like it would have ended up like this, which is how most of those relationships ended up.
Yeah.
And it was very demoralizing, again, to have failure after failure when you've succeeded at other things. Here I was, a successful physician now. I'm in my first few years of practice, and I'm still stressed out and tense and anxious. And, it was not only was the stress bothersome, but having to pretend that I had it all together and present myself to the outside world as, I'm a together physician, a professional. I've got a successful practice. I'm doing well financially. So I had this added burden of having to sort of try to convince the world that I wasn't feeling like I was feeling inside. And I wasn't,
How much do you think that added to your stress level to have to feel like you were? Yeah.
A lot, because you're walking around every day and that you're trying to make people think that you're happy and you got it all together. And inside that, you get triggered very easily, and the slightest thing will make you angry or frustrated. And sometimes your emotions just start running away and screw up your day, and you can't, concentrate the way you want to. Fortunately, it didn't affect at least I don't think it affected my performance as a physician.
Good. Excellent. Good to hear that.
But it bothered me, and I kept trying. I mean, for years, I kept trying to do things. So like I said, I tried all the different kinds of things. I tried, meditating. Back then, I I tried various relaxation procedures and deep breathing exercises, and changing my diet and exercising, and most of that stuff didn't help all that much. I mean, it may have helped a little bit, it may have helped for a little while, but the stress kept coming back, the emotions kept coming back, and relationship problems kept happening. And I tell you, things got so bad in medical school after my second year. I mean, I just threw in the towel and said, I got to get some help. And I went into therapy.
Mm.
And fortunately, I got uh, hooked up with a very, very good therapist. And I continued in therapy all through medical school and my 3 years of medical residency, and even my first year or two in practice. I would go to these weekly sessions. And overall, they helped. I mean, obviously, I got through medical school. I got through, graduated, and I was feeling a little bit better, but I still had all these problems. I still had the emotional problems. I still had the relationship problems. I still was feeling frustrated that I couldn't get rid of these things. And so unlike most of my other physician colleagues at the time, young physicians, I decided to go and take some additional courses and do some self-awareness trainings. And a lot of stuff was available in the 70s that I participated in. And I started learning a lot of really cool stuff about psychology, human psychology, and about communication and relationships, stuff that was never really taught in medical school, that nobody had ever taught us. And so I was really expanding my consciousness. I was expanding my doing personal growth type stuff. None of it was really focused on stress per se, but I was just learning more about things that I didn't know about, and I was getting new insights. And then at a certain point, a solution appeared to me, and it wasn't a solution that happened overnight, but there was a huge breakthrough in my thinking that occurred around stress. Really as a result of having all this stimulation and all these new ideas and new insights. But there was a point where I had a particular thought. I remember it was a particular thought that opened up a whole new avenue for me. And that one thought, if I had ignored that thought, my life would have been completely different. And the fact that I didn't ignore it, it was a crazy thought, but the fact that I didn't ignore it and I actually followed it and pursued it led me to this transformation around stress that was life-changing for me in my own personal life, and also led me to where I am today, where I'm able to do things and help people in ways that a lot of other folks can't. So it was a very specific thought, and I assume you'd like to know what that thought is.
Absolutely.
So I made a slide that has it, but
you're not going to show it to us, or
I'm going to show it to you. Here it is. So here was the thought, and it occurred to me one day: what if none of what we've been, or nothing about what we've been told about stress, is actually true? I mean, what if it's all false? What if it's all misguided? What if all these people who've been trying to help us deal with stress have written all these books and all the things that are being preached by so-called stress ed? What if at the bottom of it all is based on a bunch of falsehoods about human stress, and people have not recognized that yet? Now, I got to tell you, when I had this thought, I said it was a crazy thought, because you got to understand, I was a scientist. I was a science major in college. I was a scientifically oriented physician, and I knew there was a lot of science about stress. So I'm thinking to myself, who am I to think, in this way, to even consider the possibility that what everybody's saying about stress isn't true? But that's the thought that I had, and I was willing to pursue it. And so I really spent another couple years from that point trying to find out if this was correct or not, and if there were things about stress that were inaccurate. And I spent a good 2 years and probably about $200,000 of my own funds taking courses, doing workshops, associating with some really leading edge thinkers who I targeted. I zeroed in on ones that I thought could really help give me some insights into stress. And sure enough, eventually I discovered that it was true, that much of what I was taught about stress in medical school, much of what I was reading about it in books and magazine articles, isn't the real truth about stress. So systematically, I started to realize that there was an issue when I look back on why I had been unsuccessful. at dealing with stress. And the thing that I realized that I wasn't aware of for the first 30 years of my life was that I had been given a system for understanding and dealing with stress that had been implanted in my brain. And it was full of misconceptions and misunderstandings, and a lot of errors were in that system. But I didn't even know I had a system, much less, what it consisted of and whether it was accurate or not. But I know every time I was stressed, every time I was anxious, for example, I had tremendous fear of public speaking. When I was in medical school, if I even raised my hand in class to answer a question that I damn well knew the answer to, I was petrified. Just having the spotlight shine on me and having to open my mouth and speak. I mean, sometimes I could hardly get the words out, even though, I had the right answer. So, I was just paralyzed with fear about public speaking. And I had no idea where, when I tried to deal with it, I had no idea that I was referencing this system that had lots of errors and misconceptions in it and really never led me to find a solution until I started correcting things in the system. So that was the big breakthrough, is eventually realizing that, and by the way, that system is the same system most of you on this call probably have today, that has been given to us through our society and through our education process, and it's got a lot of flaws in it. So I think one of the most important things, and this is one of the three things that I told you in the beginning I wanted to focus on, what is it that's really holding you back today, just like it was holding me back 30 years ago, from having tremendous breakthroughs in the area of being able to deal with all kinds of different stress in your life, is the fact that you've got this system too. And it's been embedded in you, it's been conditioned in you, and it's full of holes, it's full of outdated concepts that are, and that's the reason why you haven't been able to eliminate a lot of these stressful problems. It's not that there's anything wrong with you or there's anything incapable within you of being able to do it. I was the same person I was for those first 30 years, in a sense. I had the same abilities, natural ability. I just didn't realize I had this antiquated system that was holding me back. Once I flipped that system and changed it and fixed a lot of the mistakes that were in it, suddenly, I was able to deal with anxiety. I was able to cure myself of public speaking fear. I was able to stop having all these relationship failures. I was able to stop being angry. All this kind of stuff started to flow immediately once I corrected a lot of the misconceptions that were part of the basic system that we all sort of get conditioned to have. So this is just sort of like a graphic, representation of what I mean by a system. It's a system our system that we've been given is built around stress management. It's what we're sort of taught. It's what we're encouraged to think about. The best way to deal with stress is to manage it. Actually, the best way to deal with it is to avoid it. If you can't avoid it, then the best thing to do is to manage it. So we've all been told about the benefits of meditation and relaxation and yoga and various stress management techniques. And again, they all have lots of benefits. They're all probably a lot better than using drugs or alcohol or, any kind of illegal substances, which a lot of people unfortunately use to deal with their stress. They're healthier, they're health promoting. They're all good in that sense. But what we don't understand is, along with that advice, that mindset of managing stress, come a whole bunch of other assumptions and beliefs that sort of never get talked about, but are in the background of our thinking. And that's where the flaws are. That's where a lot of the misunderstanding is. So, for example, we have ideas about what it means to be human. We have sort of a blueprint of what it means to be human. And we're talking about stress as a human phenomenon, and we're human beings. So when we get stressed or we try to deal with anxiety or anger or relationship problems or stress at work, we're referencing whether we know it or not, consciously or unconsciously, mostly unconsciously, we're referencing our assumptions about what it means to be a human being. And what I found out that was very interesting is a lot of what I was taught, including in medical school, about being a human being was not correct.
So just pulling that up really quickly. So what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about being a human being? Being human?
Well, the whole mind, actually the whole mind-body model of human beings is not accurate. There really is there's no division of mind and body.
Mm.
You know, that we think things, certain things, people think that stress is a psychological problem. It's not a psychological problem. It's a body, it's a problem with our bodies. And we get conditioned in certain ways, and certain beliefs and thoughts and theories get programmed into our bodies, and then our bodies react automatically when we get triggered by certain events. And we have no awareness of what's being triggered within us. We just walk around, we feel things, and our physiology gets stimulated, but we're not aware of the specific what's going on inside our bodies that we can't see very well. And there are other aspects about language and biology, and there's a whole new way of understanding human beings called biolinguistics, which I talk about in the ultimate system for ultimate stress relief system home study course. There's a whole bunch of stuff about being human that when you get that straightened out, you start to understand human stress in a much better, more accurate way. And then there's all the beliefs we have about stress, some of which I'm going to show you just in a few minutes are faulty. And we've all been carrying them around. We've all been thinking about stress in these ways. And that's not what stress really is. Yet that's the faulty blueprint we've had. So again, when we go to deal with our stressful problems in life, we reference these blueprints that are in the background. And then we have ideas about what causes our stress to occur. And mostly we've been taught to focus on external causes, which clearly are there and they're very obvious. Everybody sees them, everybody points to them, but that's not the whole story. There are other causes that we're not being taught to focus on. And if you don't have those other causes in your system, if you don't know what they are, then your system's going to be incomplete and faulty. And you're only going to be working with half the puzzle pieces when you're trying to solve these problems, which is why a lot of times we're not successful, because we've got this system with a lot of holes in it. And then we also have tools and strategies. All these pieces all fit together, and they all support each other and are consistent with each other. And if you dig deeply into some of them, as I did over that several-year period, you start to see there's a lot of misunderstandings. When you correct those misunderstandings and create a kind of a new foundation for a new system, what happened for me was, without even doing anything, my anxiety started to disappear. Without even doing anything, I started to become less angry. My relationship started to improve because I had this whole new foundation of understanding what was going on. And then the other thing was I was able to take this system and consciously apply it to specific problems. So for example, I had this fear of public speaking. And I said, okay, now that I have this system and I see how valuable and powerful it is, I'm going to use this system and I'm going to use it to cure my public speaking fear. And I did that. I set out, to use myself as an experiment to see if it was one of the first tests of this system that I did to see if it actually held water. And within about 6 months, I was able to totally cure myself of public speaking. I speak in public now. I love it. I actually feel better when I'm speaking in public than when I'm by myself. When I'm sitting at home by myself.
How does your wife feel about that?
She loves it. She's a public speaker too.
Okay, good. Just checking.
Yeah. But it's funny. I mean, I'm basically a quiet guy. You wouldn't know it from this webinar, but when I get out in front of a group of people, I just sort of like come alive, and I just get energized, and I'm just feeling as comfortable as I could be. And I'm just having a ball, sharing ideas with people and interacting with people. And I used to I would cringe in fear, even at the thought of having to give a speech in front of people. So, but the point is that I had this system, and and I could use it for any stressful problem in life once I had it built. And once I knew how to use it and knew the components inside and out, it's an incredibly powerful system. And like I said, I've been using this every day of my life for 30 years. Okay. And it's rarely let me down. And any kind of problem, there's lots of problems that come up that are recurrent problems. And there's some that are just really like come out of the blue, that are unexpected, unanticipated, stressful events and things. And whenever any of those things happened during the last 30 years, man, I was so glad that I had this system in place, because I was able to make sense of it quickly, understand it quickly, and deal with it quickly. So this is the system that I have now. This is the one that I built 30 years ago, and it has all the same pieces. It's just that the components and the beliefs and the assumptions are very different. and different ideas about being human, different ideas about what stress is, which I'll share a few of them in just a minute. Instead of trying to manage stress, I want to eliminate stress. So for example, if you're struggling with anxiety or you're struggling with anger, you really want to manage those problems? Or would you rather just be the kind of person who doesn't get angry all the time and doesn't get anxious all the time? I would rather do that than
Yeah.
spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to manage those symptoms. And the same thing, if you're having relationship problems or stress at work, wouldn't you rather be the kind of person that gets along well with other people and has lots of fun and joy and enthusiasm about going to work every day? That's what I'd rather do. I don't want to manage those problems. I want to eliminate them.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds
So
good.
that, so that I can be a different kind
Tell
of
us
person.
more. Tell us more.
And again, the internal cause, you have to really focus on the internal causes. That's a big piece of the system. So now I'm going to share with you a couple parts of the system, 3 or 4 parts of the system, and there's many, many parts to it, but you'll see how powerful it is. What you'll get out of just these 3 parts or 4 parts, and there's a whole bunch more that go along with it. But is there anything you wanted to talk about before I go into that?
No, I think you're doing great, Mort. Love hearing this, and please continue.
Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 pieces of the system. And basically, what I'm going to do with you here right now is this is going to be like you're in the home study course, and we're going to be building. And what we do in that course is we build a new foundation for you to understand stress as a human phenomenon. So I'm going to give you like the first couple lessons of the program. We'll do it right here live.
Great.
And it'll be like you're in the course.
Yeah.
So first thing we tackle is, what is stress? It's actually not the first thing we tackle, but it's the second thing we tackle. But once we understand what a human being is,
yeah.
then we move on to what is stress. So let me set the stage for this. So if you've read anything or heard anything about stress before, any book, anything, everybody starts off with giving you a definition of stress. I'm sure you've heard definitions out the wazoo. They always talk about the fight or flight response. They talk about sort of interpreting events as threats and stimulating your physiology. There's all kinds of scientific definitions and psychological definitions and psychophysiologic definitions, and there's a bunch of them that are popular. The only problem with those definitions is none of them actually get at what stress really is. They're all misleading. They don't really tell you what stress is at its heart, as a human phenomenon, what it is, right? And so that's the first thing we need to clarify. We need to get rid of the old ideas we have in our old system and replace it with a better way of thinking about what stress really is. And this is that simple change I told you about. You can make right here tonight. I'm going to show you how to think about stress differently right now. And if you do that, it'll change the way you think about stress and hopefully deal with it forevermore, permanently.
Yeah.
And I'll show you what I mean. So, what is the truth about stress? The truth about stress, believe it or not, is it's just a word. It's not a thing. It's not a condition. It's actually not something human beings can suffer from. We never suffer from stress. And you can never deal with stress. Everybody's running around today saying, how can I deal with my stress? You can't. It's a buzzword. It's a concept. It's a word that was introduced into our language in the 1920s by Hans Selye, who's credited as being the father of modern stress research. Prior to 1920, there was no such thing as stress.
So I just wanted to jump in here. This whole concept of that was something that when I first heard Mort talk about it, I was very resistant to believing that. I was like, no, people are stressed. They're screaming. There's road rage. There's all kinds of stuff. And
I'm not denying that.
It took me a while to get over and go, oh my God, you're right. It's just a word. It's not an actual thing. So
people had all those things prior to 1920. People were having anxiety attacks. They were having anger episodes. They were having relationship problems. They had all that stuff. They just didn't, and they had a lot of physiologic problems too. They had high blood pressure. They had, heart disease. They had all kinds of stuff. All right, and they just didn't have this word stress to put a label on it. So, and in fact, if Selye, in the first book that he wrote for the public, after doing all this research on animals and detailing all the physiologic responses that he was one of the first to discover, right in the early part of his book, he warns people. He says, now don't make the mistake of thinking that stress is something that exists. It's just an abstraction. I had to make up a word.
Abstraction. Okay.
I had to make up a word to because I was going to talk to other scientists and we were going to share research and develop this thing. We needed a word. So I invented one.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing. You know, don't make the mistake. Of course, nobody paid attention to him. So we've been walking around like, so again, it's not denying that there's sure there are physiologic problems that are real. People get tense, they get irritable, and all that kind of stuff. But we never really suffer from stress. Whenever we think we're suffering from stress, we're not. We're suffering from something else. So what is that something else that's real? It's not just a word. And the answer is, stress is a word that stands for problems. Lots of problems. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of specific problems. We use the same general term stress to refer to. So you can be having anxiety attacks and call that stress. You can be having anger episodes and call that stress. You can have road rage and call that stress. You can have financial problems and worries and call that stress. You can be about to lose your job and call that stress. You can have an illness, you know, that's stressful for you now that you have to deal with, or a family member can get sick and you can call that stress. A child can become addicted to drugs. Or a friend can become addicted to drugs, you can call that stress. You can call all these problems stress, and in fact, we do. So if you're talking to another person and they say, oh boy, I'm stressed today, you have no friggin' idea which problems they're referring to. You know?
Which problem is it today? Yeah.
When you say to yourself, I'm stressed today, well, what do you mean? Tell me more, you know? Forget this word stress. So the one simple change that I'm gonna ask you to make starting right now is whenever you hear that word stress from now on, either coming out of your own mouth or in your own head, or somebody else is telling you they're stressed, substitute the word problems and see the difference that makes. Because the minute you do that, number one, you're telling the truth about what it really is. And number two, it begs the question, well, okay, well, what are the problems I'm having? I guess I haven't really focused on that. You know, what I've done is I've lumped them all together. I've lumped all my problems together, put them in a, you know, in a compartment and put this label stress on them. Well, I don't have any definition or clarity now about what the specific problems are I'm dealing with. Maybe you do intuitively have some clarity, but you really want to find out what the specific problems are you're dealing with. And usually when we're under stress, we have a lot of problems or a number of problems, not just, but you could have one big one. But a lot of times we have multiple problems, but it's important to know what those problems are individually and specifically if you're going to deal with them in the most effective way. And if you're going to make that type of stress, you know, disappear or eliminate it from your life. So it's funny. It's really like, you know, what's that a picture of? Beautiful sunrise, right?
Yeah, yeah. Light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. And we all go around talking about, oh, what a beautiful sunrise, and isn't it a wonderful sunrise? And if we're on vacation, we love to sit and watch the sunrise. Well, guess what? The sun doesn't rise.
Yeah.
That's a fabrication. The earth is actually rotating. But as human beings, we have language, and we can get together and we can make up a story, and we can say, oh, the sun is rising, isn't that nice? And then we can pretend it's like a real thing when it's not. And this is the same thing, you know, you can make up the story called stress and say, oh, I'm having stress. And no, you're not. You're having problems. The earth is rotating. The sun is not rising.
Right.
And that's the first key point that in a new system, and you know, in a better system for stress, if you understand, get grounded in the fact that stress is just a word that stands for problems.
Yeah.
And let me give you I want to give you an example of like the one person that I worked with in my career who was the least likely to succeed in eliminating stress. This was a guy that everybody had given up on. His name was Jim. His name really wasn't Jim, but I'm to protect his privacy. We'll call him Jim. But he was a real person that came to me for counseling, and he had been written off. I mean, this was a guy who was like in his mid 40s. He was married, had 2 kids, had a business. He was a landscaping business. And he had a 20-year history of chronic stress, chronic headaches, indigestion, diarrhea, muscle tension, anger outbursts, relationship conflicts, the whole 9 yards. And it would ebb and flow depending upon what was going on in his life. And sometimes it would get worse, sometimes it would get better. And this particular time he came to see me, his business had actually expanded. I mean, all of a sudden he got all these new clients, and he had to hire new people and get new crews and train. And his life was just, he was being successful, but he was stressed out to the max. And he had tried all this stuff, self-help stuff, like I had tried, didn't help. So he decides to go to in town in Baltimore here, he decides to go to a stress management psychologist. And he, a very prominent psychologist in our area, he worked with the stress management psychologist for 3 months, I think it was. And came in one day, and the psychologist said, I don't think I'm really helping you here. I don't think you're getting any better. I think you need to see a psychiatrist, and I have somebody in mind, and I'm giving you this referral. I think you ought to go see him. Now, it's not what he wanted to hear, but he respected this guy's opinion, and he wasn't getting better. So he took the advice. He went to see the psychiatrist for the first visit, went back for a second visit to the psychiatrist. At the end of the second visit, the psychiatrist kicks him out and says, I don't really think you have what it takes to do well in psychotherapy. I think you ought to go back and keep working with the, stress management guy, because you just don't have what it takes. And, so he was like at his wit's end, and like all the options were gone. And then fortunately he had a friend who knew about my work, and he said, why don't you go see this Dr. Orman guy who, does some amazing stuff with stress. And of course he said, well, I've kind of like exhausted all my other options. Why not? So he came to see me. He wasn't very optimistic. But when I heard his story, when he sat down the first day and he told me his story about why, everybody had told him he really can't get better, and he didn't know why he's there, because he's probably not going to get better. And I knew exactly what the problem was. I knew, number one, I knew that he absolutely did have the ability to eliminate most of his stress, but he didn't know it. And I also knew that both of the 2 mental health professionals that he had seen were steeped in the same system that I had been taught in medical school, and that it was a crazy system. And so no wonder they couldn't help him, and no wonder he wasn't getting better. So so I worked with this guy, and I tell you, and I taught him my new system. And within 6 weeks of working with this guy, once a week for 6 weeks, he started seeing improvement in his stress levels that he had never had in 20 years. It was unbelievable. And I continued working with this guy for a little more than a year. And within a couple months, he had eliminated 50% of his stress. And I actually followed up with him many years later. After we stopped working together, he has continued to do very well. He has this new system in place. He understands things better. He understands things differently. He's got a whole new way of dealing with issues that he wasn't able to deal with successfully before. And it was a complete turnaround. And he was the poster child for who you would least likely.
Yeah, that's a stunning shift there.
Yeah. So what does this mean for you? If he could do that, and all these people had written him off, and he had written himself off, what does it mean for whatever kind of stress issues you may be struggling with, that you may have come to the conclusion, I don't think I could really truly get rid of these things. The best I can do is manage them or put up with them and keep them from, doing me any major harm if I can.
Yeah.
And what would your life be like if you always remembered that stress was just a word? Like I said, it would force you into a different path. It would force you into, instead of asking the question, how can I deal with my stress? You would start saying, okay, what are the problems I'm having, and how can I deal with those problems? And you'll start asking more problem-focused questions. So, you'll go down a completely different fork in the road when you make that little mental shift of understanding what stress is. And also of the next point we're going to talk about, which is stress management. So the second part of your new system is all about value of stress management. And again, I'm not saying there's not value in stress management. I'm just saying if you want to eliminate stress, it's not a great system. It's not a great approach. And again, the reason I say that is because with the exception of a few stress management techniques, meditation, certain types of meditation being one of them, as we talked about earlier, the vast majority of stress management techniques basically are dealing with just the symptoms of our problems. They're much better than dealing with our symptoms by using alcohol or drugs or overeating or using chemical solutions. They're much healthier, but in a sense they're similar in that they still only deal with symptoms.
Right.
And
right.
and that's why I say it's stress management is for losers, because we know that if you only deal with the symptoms of your problems, you're not going to win. You're not going to eliminate those problems. You're going to keep having to manage them over and over again because you're only treating symptoms. And that's the choice point that we have now. Do you want to continue to deal with symptoms, or do you want to learn how to deal with causes? And again, in the system that we've been given, we've all been brainwashed to, as I mentioned before, take all of our problems and throw them in a basket.
Yeah.
And call that basket stress, and then ask ourselves, how can we deal with our stress? So if all you want to do is deal with symptoms, that's perfectly fine. That'll work. Okay? Put all your problems, don't worry about what the individual problems are. Put them all in a basket, call it stress, and then say, okay, how can I deal with my stress? I can use alcohol, I can use drugs, I can use relaxation techniques, I can use meditation, yoga, tai chi. I can do things to reduce my symptoms, which is fine. Okay? If that's what you want to do. But if you want to get at causes, you got to start taking those problems out of the basket one by one. And you got to identify them specifically. And then you got to get at the causes for each problem. So we all know that when you only attack symptoms, your stress keeps happening.
Right.
Problems rarely get solved. Sometimes you can create new problems. So if you're using alcohol or drugs or things like that, you have addictions and other kinds of accidents and other kinds of things that can happen. Even stress management techniques. Now you have a new problem. Now you have a new part-time job. You got to figure out how to do all the stress management stuff, and you're busy and you're stressed, and now you got a whole new set of stresses, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you basically, it's not a good system for eliminating these problems. And this is what I base my system around. Not managing stress, but I consider the ultimate method for dealing with stress is getting down to your problems, analyzing each problem individually, getting at the causes and solving them at the level of causes. People have been solving problems in life. Human beings have been solving our problems in life for thousands of years by using this system. We've just been brainwashed that it's not the way to go when you're dealing with stressful problems in life. But it turns out it is. And there are ways you can learn how to do this. So again, I taught Jim my system, and one of the things that he realized very early on that helped him, embrace it and benefit from it was like, he went, holy cow, I've been so wrong about all these things that I was taught to believe about stress, and from what it was to, where it was coming from in my life, what to do about it. And he had to really grapple with the fact that he had been given a system that had a lot of misunderstandings in it, and it made him wrong about a lot of things. And he had to be willing to admit that, and to be willing to be open to new ways of looking at things, which he was, and he benefited greatly from it. So again, what does this mean for you? Well, it means there are a lot of things that you could do right now that you probably don't know that you could do. What it's going to take is you have to be willing to be wrong about a lot of things you were taught. And a lot of people aren't willing to be wrong.
I was just going to say, what's the best technique for getting people over that resistance? Like, oh my God, like even your example about the sunrise, sun doesn't actually rise. It is the earth shifting. But I love to take pictures of the sunrise, and I'd hate to call it, oh, here's my picture of the earth moving.
No, it's fine. It's fine to call it the sunrise as long as you understand that's what you're doing. It's fine to use the word stress as long as you know it's a buzzword and it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just a word for problems. As long as you make that little connection in your mind, a little extra connection, it's fine to keep using it. I mean, I'm fond of saying I wish I could wave a magic wand and eliminate the word stress from the human vocabulary. Fantastic. We're obviously not going to do that. So you got to do that little work yourself, that little piece yourself. So again, how would your life change if you stopped attacking the symptoms and started attacking the root causes of stress? And this leads me to the third piece of the puzzle, or the third part of the new system that I hope you would take away from this webinar. This is, again, the fork in the road on attacking symptoms versus causes. But the third part of the system is, how do you attack causes? And here again, as I mentioned earlier, we've been given some bad information, and we've been taught to think in ways that don't help us understand the causes of our stressful problems in life. And mostly we've been taught to focus on the external causes, and we are missing half the puzzle pieces.
Right.
So what you really need to do, and what the bulk of my approach in teaching people, and what the ultimate system, ultimate stress relief system home study course does, is it really expands your skill set of understanding what I call the hidden causes of stress. So when it comes to understanding the causes of anxiety, anger, frustration, relationship problems, public speaking fear, financial issues, stress at work, all that stuff, what you see, what's obvious, is not all there is. There are a whole bunch of other causes that are going on that are invisible. And in order to learn about these, and in order to be able to deal with these effectively, again, you have to be willing to think differently than we've been conditioned to think. You have to be willing to recognize that there's something wrong with this model that only looks at the external causes and says, that's it. That's where your stress is coming from. Because, by the way, you can't do much about a lot of those external causes. But when you start to notice what the internal causes are, you're in pretty much control of your internal causes, or at least you can take control of them. But in order to get that awareness, in order to understand what these things are, you have to break from the pack. You have to be willing, to think differently, to understand things differently, and to gain new knowledge and a new skill set that comes in very handy once you have it. So it's really the difference between internal and external causes where a lot of this ability to eliminate stress boils down to. And the better you are at identifying internal causes. So like I say, when I said to you that I cured my public speaking fear by taking that system, right, that's how I did it. I said, okay, what am I doing? What are the internal causes that are going on inside me, consciously or unconsciously, that's causing this unnecessary fear of public speaking? And that was the question I started with. And then I had to actually dig around and try and figure it out and actually come up with the specific internal causes. I had specific beliefs about public speaking, about the audience, about what it means to be a public speaker, about how to prepare for a talk, about how to deliver a talk, about what the purpose of delivering a talk, of talking to other people, is. And they were all caca. They were all caca. Yeah. But I hadn't really taken them into account. I hadn't observed them. I hadn't recognized they were in the background of my thinking. There was a lot of perfectionistic expectations of how you give a talk. There was all kinds of crap in there that I never explored. But once I was on that path, I said, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to find out what these internal causes are. Once I saw them, number one, I could realize how foolish they were and how inappropriate and not connected to reality they were. And then I could make the corrections that I needed to make. And again, it didn't happen overnight, but that gave me the avenue, opened up the door that enabled me to do that. So why is my thing not working here? Okay. So these internal causes are entirely within us. And because they're within us, they're not easy to see. Okay, where did that go? Something's happening to my thing here. Oh. I jumped way ahead. So I apologize. I don't know how that happened. One second. Huh, this is strange.
Where did it go? Let's see. There it is.
Okay. So how would it be different if you could pinpoint the internal causes of many different types of stress in your life? I mean, I just gave you one example, public speaking fear, but I did this for relationships. Relationship trouble I was having. I did this for my anxiety, a lot of my other anxiety problems, a lot of other problems I was having. It really helps to be able to do that. So again, this is the third fork in the road. We can either stay blind to the internal causes, or we can find out what the hell they are and learn how to deal with them. And the benefits are many. So when you do that, When you're able to do that, you'll have less emotional stress, fewer relationship conflicts and failures, better health because your stress levels overall will be lower, more contentment and inner peace and confidence, and even more wealth and success because you won't be creating a lot of problems that get in your way. And one of the big things that happens for us when we're stressed is we don't move on opportunities that come our way because we know we're already sort of overwhelmed and overstressed, and like we're not going to move on something because it's just going to make us more stressed out to add one more project or one more opportunity. And so we pass up on a lot of things that could be to our benefit. And by the same token, if I can get these slides to move, by not learning about these internal causes, we pretty much will remain stressed for the most part, and it can affect our family lives and can affect our health, and again, the missed opportunities, and it can limit our success. So again, this is the kind of system I think you want to have. You want to be able to have tools and insights, not just about being human and about stress, but specifically about internal causes of various different types of problems. And in the home study course I've designed, I really give people a lot of training to recognize all these things and also tools and strategies for how to deal with them. And I'm going to share one of those with you right now, which again, we skipped over some slides here. Huh.
That's all right. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
Don't want to stress anyone out over this. Hang on.
No, I'm not. You know, I'm using my system right now, by the way.
Excellent.
Although I don't know where these slides went. Anyhow, so let me go back to Jim. So one of the issues that Jim had was an anger issue, among many that he had. Maybe it was before these slides. This is weird. Huh. Anyhow, so he had an anger issue, and remember I said I was going to give you a tool at the end of the presentation. So
exactly.
the tool is it's from the system, and it shows you the internal causes of anger in human beings. And basically, most of the internal causes that I'm talking about here, that are invisible, are thought patterns and behavior patterns that sort of are automatically triggered in our bodies. The ways of thinking, their opinions, beliefs, attitudes that we've been given, or patterns of behaving or even not behaving. I mean, there's a lot of times there are things that we don't do that contribute to us having problems, stressful problems in life that we could have avoided. So you can take any emotion, any negative emotion, and you can actually pinpoint the specific internal causes, conversations or the thought patterns, and the behavior patterns that are driving that emotion. So what I did with Jim, one of the things I did with Jim is I taught him how to understand the internal causes of human anger. This again is another piece of that, understanding human beings, understanding human emotions, how they work, how they get caused, what causes them. And a very good way to think about human emotions is actually to use a model of a computer to illustrate the point I'm going to make in a second here. So if you can imagine sitting in front of your computer and you press the letter A on your keyboard and the letter A appears on your screen, that's something you normally expect to happen, yes?
Yep, exactly.
If I asked you what caused that to happen, what caused the letter A to appear on your screen, most people would say, well, obviously I pushed the A key and that's what caused it. That's what we see. We see pushing the A key, we see A appear on the screen. That looks like it's a one-to-one cause-effect relationship. Unfortunately, it's not. There's other things going on that are invisible that we're not seeing, but they have to be there. And that they have to, there's a program that has to be running in the back of that computer for you to hit that A key and for the pixels to line up on the screen in the configuration of the letter A.
Right.
And if that program isn't there, you can hit that key all you want. You're never going to get the letter A to appear on the screen. And that's not a random program. It's a computer programmer had to use very specific language to get that to appear on the screen. And they know how to do it. We don't know how to do it. It doesn't matter to us. All we care about is I press the A key and I get the A on the screen. But somebody who builds computers and software has to know what that language is. Well, our emotions function in much the same way. It's like we're biologic computers in a sense. Somebody pushes our A key or our anger key.
Right.
We see what they do. They say something. They do something. They treat us badly. They, insult us. They demean us. They harm us. They do something. And our anger appears in our body. We put this one-to-one. We do this one-to-one cause-effect relationship thing. Oh, that's what caused my anger. You did this or you said this. Yeah, that's only half the story, though. There was a program that got triggered in you, a specific sequence of thoughts that had to be there for you to get angry. And unless you know what those thoughts are precisely, okay, you can't really step in and intervene most of the time. But on the other hand, when you know the mechanism of anger, and I go through this for anger and for a number of other emotions in the course. But so basically, here's how anger works for human beings. I had a slide that showed this to you, but it's obviously not here. Or
All right.
it's invisible.
We got it.
It's invisible.
It's invisible. Yeah, another invisible program tool.
There's a slide in here that I'm gonna be talking from right now, even though you can't see it. So here's how we have to be thinking in order to get angry. So first, you have to assume that somebody did something bad or wrong, something they shouldn't have done. We rarely get angry when we think somebody did something wonderful or terrific. Okay, it's usually bad or wrong or not, what they shouldn't have done. The second thought we have to have is that somebody else was hurt or harmed or inconvenienced or negatively impacted by the wrong thing that was done. So once again, even if somebody does something bad or wrong, but nobody's harmed or put out in any way, you may not like it, but we usually don't get really exercised to be angry about it unless both of those things, we look at it in both of those ways. And then the third important component of anger is that the person who did those two things, did something bad and wrong, hurt or harmed somebody or negatively impact somebody, was usually 100% responsible, what I call unilaterally responsible or to blame for whatever happened. In other words, we didn't have anything to do with it. They did it. They did the bad, wrong thing. They hurt somebody. We observed it, but we didn't have anything to do with it. Okay. And now we're pissed. All right. Yeah. And that's the program. And there's a different program for guilt. There's a different program for anxiety. There's a different program for worry. There's a different program for sadness. But they're very specific thoughts like that. And you have to be, not only do you have to be thinking in those ways, but internally in your body, you have to be convinced that those things are absolutely true.
Yeah.
Your emotion comes from the automatic assumption of those thoughts and the second assumption that those thoughts are 100% true.
Right. Right.
And what's very interesting is once you have a window into what's going on and you can see the mechanism and you know why you're feeling angry and you know specific thoughts, and you start questioning those thoughts. Did somebody really do something bad and wrong? Did somebody really hurt or harm somebody else? Were they really 100% responsible? In other words, did I not have anything to do with it?
Right.
You find out that a lot of times the one or more of those automatic assumptions is not true. So you would be amazed at how many times we get angry because we've misperceived reality or we've made an assumption that turns out not to be valid. But we never get to fix it. We never get to correct it because we have no idea what the hell assumptions we made and why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And when you get the ability, and that's why I say, when you have a system that gives you the ability to know beyond a shadow of a doubt exactly why you're feeling angry or anxious or guilty or frustrated or worried or sad, you know exactly where it's coming from, you can step in and you can actually look at those thoughts and look at those perceptions and say, is this true? And let me tell you something. If you do that with anger and you find one of those things that isn't true, guess what happens to your anger?
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to hang on to that.
It disappears immediately.
Yeah.
It vanishes. And you didn't have to punch a punching bag or, run 5 miles or take deep breaths or all you did was you corrected a misperception or a false assumption. And once you see that it's false, it's like there's nothing to be angry about anymore. The anger just disappears because you're now seeing things more accurately and more realistically as to what really happened. So that's the power of having these insights that are all, can all be included in a comprehensive system with all kinds of supporting ideas and other tools and other types of things that can be very, very beneficial. So again, getting, hopefully the rest of the slides will work here, but not knowing for sure why each person showed up here and what you were trying to get out of this webinar, I do want to let you know that there is, and again, it could be for multiple reasons why different people are here. And you did learn a couple key things here. So you now have pieces of a new system. It's just the beginning of the new system, but now you know stress is just a word. You know that stress management deals mainly with symptoms, not causes, and there are some exceptions to that. You know that the best way to deal with stress is not to manage the symptoms, but to really get at the causes, particularly the internal causes, learn how to identify them and learn how to take them on and defeat them. So this is the system that I built. This is the system that I've been using, and I have the home study course called the Ultimate Stress Relief System, which is a 10-week program that covers all of these bases that we've been talking about, and that will actually allow you to have the same system that I have. So the obvious question, how do you learn how to do this? You can either try to do it on your own, which I don't recommend. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money, or you learn from somebody who's already built a system. And usually most people have, when you talk to people who are stressed about getting rid of their stress and getting a system to eliminate it, almost everybody says, oh, I'm too stressed out to do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It would be too stressful to try to put something like that. You got to look at it as, what's the cost of not doing it? What price are we going to continue to pay? And what price are we going to pay down the line for putting up with a lot of stress that we don't need to put up with because we have this faulty system and because we haven't done anything to correct it or to learn how to correct it. And it takes an investment. It takes an investment of time. It takes an investment of training to be able to understand some of these principles and to be able to incorporate them. And you have to practice too. You can't just passively, take the stuff in. You have to actually go out and try to use it in your life. So that's the solution that I have. It's the Ultimate Stress Relief System Home Study Course. It's believe me, this course is not for everybody. As Barbara mentioned, if you're not willing, if you're closed-minded, you're not willing to consider the possibility you could be wrong about a whole heck of a lot of things, about being human and about stress and about a whole bunch of other things in life, by the way. Yeah. Revealed in this course, this is not right for you. If you have a lot of reluctance, if you have reluctance to put a couple hours a week in, it takes about 3 or 4 hours a week for 10 weeks to really assimilate most of this stuff. And there's some repetition involved, which is part of the program. If you're reluctant to do that, if you're reluctant to make the time, it's not worth. You waste your money if you do that. And there's a lot of truth-telling that goes on, very deep truth-telling that goes on in this course. And it turns out a lot of our stress in life comes from not telling the truth. And if you look around today and you ask yourself, as a society, how good are we at telling the truth? I think you'll see very quickly, just look at the political discourse.
I was just going to say, boy, that's really apropos at the moment, isn't it?
That we have a lot of, yes, I know. When I saw the reaction to the election, I said to myself, my God, I have 100 years worth of potential clients that are so confused about where their anger and all their upsets are coming from, have no clue whatsoever is what is going on and why they're so stressed out. Either way, in the election. I said, my God, this is amazing that people don't have this knowledge, don't have this understanding. So, and there are people who literally are allergic to the truth, and they don't react very well to it. You're seeing them on display, many of them on display. That's not to say there's not to say there aren't truth issues on both sides, all right? But you're seeing some real examples, prominent examples of what it means to be allergic to the truth. And if you are that kind of a person, you will hate this course because it's really a lot of very deep truth-telling, and that's what you need to do if you're going to be able to eliminate stress. So, the why I built it is to really help successful people, and a lot of times we feel like we have to put up with the stress That's the best we can do. We just slug through it, and we just, champion on and wear it as a badge of honor. But really, you can eliminate a lot of it if you just have the right understandings. And it really helps people live better and have better relationships and be happier in life and feel calmer and sleep better and protect their health, and certainly you end up laughing more you tell the truth, the more you end up laughing about what goes on in life. And that's sort of an enlightenment principle that I've heard many people talk about in it. A lot of these Zen, really deeply enlightened people are laughing all day long.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and have much more success. So it gives you tremendous inner control and knowledge that most people don't have. And it's a system for developing lifelong mastery over any kind of problem in life that could ever stress you out or be difficult for you to solve. It's a fantastic system. Like I say, I've used it continuously. When any new major problem comes up in my life that I wasn't expecting, I go right to this system of understanding to be able to get a handle on it. Like I said, it's 10 weeks of training, deals with every aspect of this graphic here. So the first week is all about being human. The second week is all about stress. And it talks about a couple of things that we talked about on the webinar, a couple of those key points, and it goes into more depth. And then the third week is all about the ultimate method for dealing with stress and eliminating it. And then the other 7 weeks of the course are all highly focused on helping you understand the internal causes and giving you tools and strategies for not only recognizing those causes, but how you can deal with them effectively so that you can make your stress go away without having to do relaxation procedures and other time-consuming approaches. So you get a private members area. The training each week comes with videos, audios, and downloadable PDFs. I've got a bunch. Barbara was asking me how many books that I've written. The number of my ebooks that I've written have included as components of the course. And one thing that I want to emphasize is, in addition to all these wonderful things that you get, and the course itself is of tremendous value, I've also built into this course private email coaching directly with me. So I will work with you one-on-one by email during the 10 weeks you're in the course, and you can ask me questions. You can have, if you have particular issues that you want to deal with, we can deal with them. If you're confused about anything or have questions about anything as you go through the course, we can do that. And it jacks up the value of the course tremendously that you get personal one-on-one attention from me. And the course itself is incredibly valuable, and it's, throwing that piece in, it's well over $10,000, easily over $10,000 in value with, my time and my expertise and all the stuff that I built into the course. We're taking 30 years of my experiences and kind of crystallizing it into something you can consume and actually get implanted in your brain, in just 10 short weeks. It took me years and tons of money to do for myself. So normally, if you go to my website, where I have this for sale, I sell it for $19.97. When we do a webinar, I do usually give people a break for being willing to be on the webinar, investing their time in doing that. So I usually give people a great deal for any webinar that I do, and I give them a $500 discount. So when I do webinars like this, I sell this program for $14.97, and I think it's still a steal. When you think about the cost, what's the cost of a divorce that you can prevent? What's the cost of a stroke or getting disabled or having a partnership relationship blow up and how you have to unwind that and all the implications, or just your energy level and your enthusiasm and your joy in life. I mean, if you project that over years, to take 10 weeks and to make an investment to get a system. And then when you get the system, by the way, you're not going back to your old system. I guarantee it. Once you get this whole mindset, this whole way of understanding things, you will never go back. And you will always have this system available to you to use in your life every single day, just like I have for the last 30 years. It will not let you down. It's very well grounded in solid principles, and it works, and it'll help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. But for this, since Barbara put this thing together specifically for her people, she asked me if I could do even better than what I normally do for a webinar price. So I agreed to do that for her folks on the webinar, and also for my folks that have come on and joined. So anybody that's here on the webinar tonight, I'm actually going to give another discount, a better than great deal. So I'll knock $1,000 off the price for just a short period of time. Again, I have to limit this because I'm making a big commitment time-wise to serve each and every person with the coaching, email coaching that I do. So I can't keep this open for all that long, but I will keep it open for 72 hours if I can. It'll definitely be gone Sunday, U.S. time. I know there was some confusion between Australia time and U.S. time.
Yeah.
It'll be gone Sunday, and it might even be gone sooner depending on how many people sign up for it, depending on how many. I want to make sure I can serve the people adequately that want to do it. So comes with 100%, risk-free, stress-free, guaranteed. If for any reason you're not happy after the first 30 days, you're going through the first 4 weeks of the course. If you're not thrilled with it, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. Just email me. And this email is given to you in the course. It's the one we would use for coaching and stuff like that. Like I said, you have to, if you want to do it and you want to take advantage of this, you need to get in quickly because it's going to be gone as of Sunday. And like I say, I may have to take it down sooner than that, depending upon what the response is. So this is the URL that you go to. And Barbara, if you want to throw that in the chat box, which I can't do at the moment, and by the way, the graphic that I'm showing you here, in addition, as part of the course, you get my 14-day stress cure book, and there's a lot of training built around that. And also another program that I did on overcoming negative emotions. They're all built into the course. And it's the kind of thing where, you could go out and you could buy the book and read it on your own, but you're not going to get anywhere near the training and the depth and the value and this really being embedded within you as something you use on a daily basis, usually just from reading a book. That's why I put this course together, because there's a lot of video training, there's a lot of in-depth coaching in these CDs, which are MP3 files in the course, that really help make this into something that translates into real value for you and real results in your life, much more so than you can get from just doing one of these programs, on its own. And then just a quick summary. I mean, the main point I wanted to emphasize tonight is that the thing that made the biggest difference for me from the first 30 years of my life to the second 30 years was realizing that I had been given a faulty system, that I was never aware of consciously. I not only was not aware I had a system, but I had no awareness of what was inside that system and the specific beliefs and assumptions and theories that had been passed on to me that people thought were correct, but were not. And that really kept me from being able to deal with the problems that I was struggling with for all those years. And once I figured that out, once I corrected the mistakes in the system and built a better system, man, everything has been different since then. And that's something that can happen for you. It can happen for you today. And 10 weeks from now, you can have the same kind of system. Now, it'll take you probably some time to practice with it and to get good at it. But you would have the exact same system that I have for the most part, and it'll only take you 10 weeks.
So, I think that's fantastic. And to me, just the first aspect of understanding that stress, it's just a word. What people really have are problems. And for everyone who's here on the call, if you go to that page, you'll still be able to get that free download. You can sign up if you want. And if you do sign up, you get the free download for the PDF as well as part of just for attending here today. And Mort, Lisa is asking, she says she's a stress mastery facilitator herself, and she'd like to know if you have a train the trainer program with your program.
Not yet, but one of the things I'm pointing towards is putting together a certification program so that people can be trained, that actually can market this course themselves. They can be trained to be the coach, like I'm being the coach for those of you who jump into this course tonight. I will be coaching you directly, one-on-one. They can be trained to do that coaching for people. So I'm planning to put together something like that.
So would you recommend that they start with this program and work it through themselves first and see how you operate? And is that
absolutely? I mean, anybody that I don't have the certification program developed yet, but one of the first requirements would be you have to go through the course yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't can't teach the course until you've mastered it yourself.
Yeah,
And then
I
I can
agree.
show you, once you've gone through it and you've grounded the principle, I can then give you some additional training on how to coach other people effectively and the kinds of difficulties they run into and where they need some additional support.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, when you go to this URL, as Barbara mentioned, at the bottom of the page, it's just a single page. You can sign up for the course, and when you sign up, you'll immediately get access to the first week's training materials right away. But there's a link at the bottom of that to get the internal causes of anger. Remember, I only talked about the first part, the conversation piece. The action patterns are also on that tool as well, and you'll have that to be able, to understand the internal causes of anger from now till forevermore when you download that. So if you do the course, it's already embedded in the course as one of the tools that's part of the course, so you don't even need to download it separately if you don't want to. But it's there for the taking if you want to take advantage of it.
I am going to open this up for questions. If you still have a few minutes, Mort.
Absolutely.
A moment. Okay, I'm going to open up for questions,
I'm
going to unmute everybody, and hopefully,
the relationships.
if you're,
that's an exciting part, is developing those relationships and that being,
some people may,
and everybody's like, running in the opposite direction.
I think you'll like it a lot.
I think there are other people on other calls, so because we had them all muted. I am going to say then you can unmute yourself if you would like to ask Mort a question directly, Dr. Orman. And I've gone through Mort's class, and I think one of the best parts for me being internet challenged, not so much anymore. We finally got our satellite working here in Tasmania, but a lot of the modules are very small little tidbits that you can go in, do 15 minutes, watch a 7-minute video, do your thinking, turn it down, come back when you have time. And I really like the way you've broken that up. So I think that's a huge plus for again, particularly for people like me who are internet challenged or time challenged, thinking, do I have to spend 4 hours at once to do this? No, you can pick it up, put it down. Great short little videos to work through and to work through the whole program. So I absolutely highly recommend this for anyone who's considering it. And especially if you're a coach or do any type of work, Mort's approach is really unique in how you're going to look at it and how you can start approaching the entire subject of working with your clients on the same subject. So I know, Bill, you mentioned you do this with business owners and in businesses, and I'm wondering, maybe Mort, you can address how someone could apply these same tactics and techniques as part of their coaching or training program.
Yeah, well, I've done a number of presentations for businesses and business groups, and you can this whole process lends itself to workshops. Longer than what we're doing tonight, but it could be a half-day or full-day workshops, and then so you can introduce people to some of these concepts and work with them a little bit with them, and then as a takeaway at the end of the program, you can funnel them into the course, so that they have live training, live interaction for however long the company wants to expose them to that, and then the course can be the next piece that once they've been sort of introduced to the whole approach. If they want to dig into it deeper, they can do that. So yeah. I've combined the two in many instances, and it's worked rather well. One of the other things I'm really excited about doing, you asked me earlier on what are some of the things I'm excited about for this year and beyond, but I can see a number of vacation courses. Travel wellness courses, for example, where people go on vacation anyway to get rid of their stress, but what happens is they come back in a week or two later, they're right back
exhausted.
In the same. Yeah, they're right back in the same situation they were before. So wouldn't it be great if you could go on vacation at a resort or on a cruise or something like that, and then you have a little workshop piece each day you're on vacation, and then you go home and then you have access to this course after you have that introduction. And so not only do you go on vacation and reduce your stress by being on vacation, but now you've got a whole new mindset and a whole new set of tools and a whole new system so that you don't go back into that same high stress level that you went on vacation to escape from. But, most of the time people go on vacation, they don't learn anything. Wouldn't it be great if you combine a learning opportunity and a follow-up learning opportunity with a vacation? And I think with the whole travel wellness or wellness travel movement that's happening today, I think there's going to be more interest and demand. And I've already seen, I've gotten some inquiries of people who want me to do cruise package, stress elimination cruise, and
Oh, that's a fantastic idea. I love that.
we're doing some
Yeah.
local workshops here in Baltimore in the coming year. So that's another opportunity to do things. And from Bill's perspective, it's kind of thing where you can do these kind of presentations for companies and corporations as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I can easily see integrating a lot of your concepts into a lot of the same training that I do as well, and working with people on how do you build the systems in your business so that you're less stressed, and how do you adjust what are the actual problems now that you have in your business so that we can get so we don't have to
it's funny.
Go ahead.
It's funny. People talk about stress at work.
Yeah.
And the truth about stress at work, doesn't matter what occupation you're in or how stressful an occupation you're in. The truth about stress at work is that at least 50% of it is not knowing how to deal with emotions well and not knowing how to deal with relationship issues well.
Yeah.
And if you nail those two things, which this system, my home study course is very strong in, if you get well grounded in how to tackle those issues very, very strongly, you've just handled 50% of your stress at work. Whether you're a physician or a dentist or an entrepreneur or a police officer or a teacher, it doesn't matter. You're a lot of the day you're struggling with emotional reactions, yours and other people's, and potential relationship conflicts on the job. But granted, there are other stresses that are stressful problems that may be pertinent to a particular occupation. As a physician, we have certain issues that other people don't necessarily have to deal with, but other people in other occupations, have things that I don't have to deal with. So there are some specific, and then you have to do the same thing with those. You have to identify the problems and understand the causes and deal with the causes if you really want to eliminate those difficulties or sources of stress.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions for Dr. Orman, you can type it in the chat or raise your hand, unmute yourself, and happy to take some questions. I was going to ask people to submit questions ahead of time, and let's see. Let's see, I'm just going to add this to the slide here, how you can get the really special deal. And I was actually amazed that Dr. Orman was willing to lower the price so much, because I know he's been charging $2,000 for this from day one. So we're really thrilled that he was able to make some special adjustments for us today. And I think it's well worth jumping on and taking a look at that page. And at the minimum, go ahead and download that special freebie that you'll get automatically if you sign up for his class. And otherwise, please type in any questions you've got, or otherwise I think we'll end that here. And really great having you on the call today, Dr. Orman. And I do have one last question for you that I ask everybody. Yeah.
I thought you might.
Well, number one, it's not about your program at the moment. I want to ask you, what is your best travel vacation spot?
My wife and I like Kauai.
Nice. I can see why. Yes.
We've been there multiple times. My wife has a friend that lives there. So we've been about 3 or 4 times. It's just, it's paradise. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I was just in Maui for my first time ever to Hawaii, and I just was amazed at how gorgeous it was.
Yeah, Hawaii is a very special place. Yes,
indeed. And one more question for you is, what is your definition of consciousness?
Well, it's hard to explain, but it comes from my new understandings about what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And biolinguistic viewpoint, which emphasizes sort of the biology of human life and the role that language plays in our biology and in our awareness. And when I say language, I'm not talking about a specific language like English or French or German.
Right.
I'm talking about the bigger aspect of human language, the fact that we have language really is what allows us to have the awareness that we have, the ability to think, the ability to project into the future, the ability to have dreams and aspirations. Almost all the things that people talk about being spiritual really come from the biologic capacities of language that we have. And and that most other species do not have that same kind of, even species that communicate do not have the same language capabilities that we have. For example, there's no species on this planet that can make a promise and keep it.
Yeah.
Only
most humans, I gotta tell you, a lot of humans can't either. So
true. At least we have the potential.
There's a few of them around.
But that's a function of language, because you have to create a future. If you make a promise, you have to actually be able to create a future and make a commitment to do something in the future. You have to understand concepts, abstract concepts like time and all kinds of other things. There's a lot that goes on in the simple act of making a promise that we are the only species that can do it, because we have this incredible language capacity that really is where our consciousness comes from. So I don't see consciousness as something that exists outside of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
We all share a certain type of consciousness that each of our bodies generate because of our biology, and our biology is similar. So it may look like it's a shared consciousness that we're tapping into, but I think we're actually tapping into our own individual self-contained consciousness that comes from language. And the other thing about language is ideas and things spread in communities through language. So it can look like there's a shared consciousness because we pass down ideas and principles and philosophies and standards and norms and things like that through language that can pervade an entire nation or an entire country or a community. And it can look like everyone's tapped into the same, cosmic consciousness or, some outside the body consciousness, when really they're still accessing the consciousness that's part of our individual biology. So that's how I probably wouldn't have said that before I had the understandings that I currently have that are admittedly different than most people understand being human. But that's one of the things that gives my system power, I think, and has been very useful to me. I'm not saying it's right. It's just that that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, great. Well, we still have a lot of people hanging on the call. They've been hanging on every word you said, Mort, and I really, really appreciate your time. It's completely changed how I view the concept of stress and stress management and stress elimination, and really grateful for having you here today. And I hope everyone gets an opportunity to take a look and look very closely at the program, because it is an amazing setup that you've got here with this 10-week course. And we encourage all of you to just jump in if you can. If you decide you hate it, you got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you've got no risk to give it a shot and see how it goes for you.
Absolutely. So once again, thank you so much for putting this together and taking the initiative to do that, and inviting your folks to learn about this and the opportunity that it can afford them. And I'm very happy to have been able to spend the time with y'all.
Yeah, great. All right, I'm going to hang up now. Thank you all, and catch you all soon.